Good morning, everyone. Can I, Mr. President?
Mr. Mayor, it is your time.
Please be seated, everyone. And I don't think there's a complete silence rule today. Good morning, Council President Clark, the welcoming committee, City Council's leadership, all the members of City Council, the leaders of my administration, many of whom are in the audience, all city officials, my fellow elected officials, District Attorney Seth Williams, State Senator Anthony Hardy Williams, and Representative Jason Dawkins, members of the School Reform Commission, Superintendent Dr. William Haidt, and my fellow Philadelphians. It is a true honor to be here with you today in the People's Chamber to fulfill the duties of my office and transmit a budget and five-year plan that serves the interests of our great city and its residents. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment and have a moment of silence to recognize three tremendous public servants who many of us have gotten to know we lost in the past year. Gloria Cazares, our city's first director of lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender affairs. Joan Markman, our first Chief Integrity Officer, and Lieutenant Joyce Craig, the first female firefighter to die in the line of duty. These three extraordinary women were exemplary public servants, consummate professionals, and dedicated leaders. Let their lives and their service act as a continual reminder to all of the rest of us that we can always do our jobs better, and let us keep them and their families in our continual thoughts and prayers. Let us bow our heads for a moment. Thank you. 33 years ago, I walked into this incredible building for the first time in my life with my best friend in life, Robert Bynum. And I fell in love with this great chamber and the idea of what could be accomplished here. I knew virtually no one. I knew nothing really about this place. But I knew that I wanted to make something of my life. And more importantly, I knew that I wanted to help improve the lives of other people. And I believed that this place was the place to accomplish that goal. And I still believe that today. But I've had a lot of help. Many teachers, mentors, supporters, and people who believed in a wide-eyed kid from West Philly. Let me mention just a few of the many people who let me learn from them. The late Councilman John C. Anderson, Dorothy Costner, Obra Knodel, Rotan Lee, Charlie Bowser, C. Dolores Tucker, Hardy Williams, John F. White Sr., Bill Gray, Dave Richardson, Herb DeBerry, Carol Ann Campbell. I've had the incredible opportunity to know and to work with the last three mayors, Mayor Good, Mayor Rendell, and Mayor Street. I've learned incredible lessons from all three of them in their great service to our city. And so many other elected officials, some of whom I had the opportunity to serve with. Augusta Clark, Happy Fernandez, Lucian Blackwell, Ann Land, Joan Krajewski, Thatcher Longstreth, David Cohen. And some of our leaders who are still leading and doing great things in our city. John F. White Jr., Dwight Evans, Angel Ortiz, and Council President Anna Verna. I'll mention two other folks who we all know in one way, shape, or form in our political lives, Saul Schur and Neil Oxman. Let each and every one of us always take the time to give a young person our time, our attention, and our knowledge. You just never know who you may inspire or whose life you will impact. 8.5 years ago, I stood at this podium and made the toughest speech of my life until that point, and announced that I was leaving this place that I love in order to seek an opportunity to serve my hometown as mayor. For 7+ years, I have had the great honor of serving my hometown, this city I love, as the mayor, and the privilege of working with some of the most passionate and dedicated public servants I've ever known, both on this city council and in the departments and agencies that provide services to our citizens. We started our journey together in January of 2008 with a new vision for Philadelphia, a city that is safer, smarter, greener, healthier, and growing. A city that strives for excellent customer service and strong financial stewardship, and a city with an ethical government committed to integrity, a government that Philadelphians could trust and be proud of. And we weren't going to be timid about it. We took on challenges that hadn't been addressed in decades, if ever. Together, we completely overhauled the city's property assessment system, turning a broken, outdated, flawed, and inaccurate system into a system that is fair, equitable, and understandable. We made city planning a priority again, and working together, rewrote the city's zoning code, creating the city's first comprehensive plan in a long time, now called Philadelphia 2035, and drafting district plans with a targeted approach to development. We refused to kick the can down the road on municipal union contracts. I said we wouldn't sign contracts that we couldn't afford. I wanted contracts that were fair to our city employees and to all of our taxpayers. After years of sometimes contentious, and I remember at least one pretty loud occurrence, we had challenging negotiations, but I'm very pleased to be able to say today that for the first time since 2009, we have long-term, sustainable contracts with District Council 33, District Council 47, the IAFF Local 22, and FOP Lodge Number 5 that include much-needed reforms that we've talked about for years and well-deserved raises for our hardworking union employees. Let me say a word or two about our union leaders and our public employees. Their commitment to serving our city is unparalleled. They are out there in the rain, today in the snow, the heat, day in and day out for all of us. Over the last 7 years, we've pretty much seen it all. The hottest summers on record, the 2 heaviest snowfall seasons in recorded city history, and one of the coldest Februaries ever on record. 2 hurricanes and an earthquake. Yes, climate change is real. And in spite of it all, our city employees rolled up their sleeves and did their work. And I especially want to recognize our great inclement weather fighters, the Managing Director's Office, the Office of Emergency Management, the Streets Department, the Water Department, and Parks and Recreation for their tremendous efforts and their sacrifices. Let us give them a huge round of applause. And when the Great Recession decimated our revenues and opened a $2.4 billion hole in our 5-year plan, we made the tough decisions to increase taxes, cut some city services, and eliminate excess. Let me just say that many of these choices were the right ones. In fact, our careful financial stewardship was cited as reasons that our credit rating has improved. Today, we are in the A category by all 3 major credit rating agencies for the first time since the 1970s. That's a result That, again, is a result of our hard work together and our partnership and focus on doing the right things for Philadelphia. However, one choice that was proposed was not a good choice. And in an effort to reduce spending all across our city government in every department and agency as the recession deepened, I proposed to close some libraries and reduce hours of service. This, in fact, is a decision that I regret the most in my entire mayoral service. Libraries are safe havens. They're knowledge access centers for our children and adults. Libraries are the starting point for great adventures and new opportunities. Libraries helped me to become the person that I am and the public servant I am today. And had this proposal gone forward, we could have possibly held back the next generation from having the same kind of library experience that I had as a kid. We should never allow that to happen. I want to commend City Council for the actions that you took to protect library service in this city. City Council was right. We needed to find another way to save the $8 million from that department during our fiscal crisis, and we actually did. As a result of Council's actions, no library ever closed in this city, and we still figured out a way to reduce spending. But today I'm very proud to say that our library service has expanded to 46 hours per week. That's 5 hours of more weekly service than we had in 2008. Every library branch is now open at least 6 days a week, with 5 branches open on Sundays, and many offer extended summer hours, including, of course, the Central Branch on the Ben Franklin Parkway. This incredible transformation has led to the Free Library winning a $25 million grant from the William Penn Foundation for expanded library services. That grant is the largest single grant ever given by the William Penn Foundation and the largest grant ever received by the Free Library. And earlier this year, Siobhan Reardon, President and Director of the Free Library, was named Librarian of the Year by Library Journal for her vision and strategic plan that turned a struggling system into a beacon of hope and opportunity for every community across Philadelphia. Let us please recognize the #1 librarian in the United States of America, Siobhan Reardon. Like the free library, we've all had to learn to do a lot more, at times with a lot less. We've invested where we could and shared in the sacrifice when we needed to. We've set ambitious goals and worked hard to achieve them. And over the years, we've seen some devastating lows, the Great Recession and the Market Street collapse, and some exhilarating highs. The announcement that Pope Francis will come to Philadelphia for the World Meeting of Families and the selection of Philadelphia as the host city for the 2016 Democratic National Convention, the first time the city will have hosted the Democratic National Convention since 1948. To put it simply, it's been an incredibly eventful, frequently thrilling, and occasionally painful journey over the last 7 years. But members of council and ladies and gentlemen, our journey isn't over yet. We still have work to do. In 2014, our homicide rate was down a little over 36%, and incidents of violent crime were down 17% compared to 2007 levels. Our homicide rate today is at its lowest point since 1967, and violent crime totals are the lowest in 30 years. Let us recognize our great Police Commissioner, Charles Ramsey, who As many of you know, Police Commissioner Ramsey was personally asked by President Barack Obama to head the 21st Century Community Policing Task Force. And he and Lori Robinson, his co-chair, delivered that report to President Obama on Monday. Over the last 7 years, our on-time high school graduation rate has increased by 12 percentage points, from 53% in 2007 to 65% in 2014. Our college degree attainment rate has risen above 25%, up from 18% in 2007. Our economy is growing. Since January of 2014, more than $8.5 billion of projects have been completed, are under construction, or were announced here in our city. And our population has grown every year since 2008. Philadelphia has experienced the largest percentage of millennial population growth of any large city in America. In my first budget address, I said that our administration had to work in partnership with Philadelphia City Council to secure our future and make our city strong and ready for the global stage and the 21st century economy. I'm proud to say that I believe we have made solid progress. And I have to admit, no, it hasn't always been perfect, but we have been able to work together to get things done and make Philadelphia stronger as a result. I'd like to take a few moments to thank all of you for what you have done to keep us moving in the right direction. First and foremost, of course, Council President Darrell Clark. I want to thank Council President Clark. I want to thank you for your diligent leadership of City Council and for your partnership in growing the development boom in Fairmount, in Spring Garden, North Philadelphia, Center City, and your role in citywide development. I know she's not here, but I want to recognize her anyway. Councilwoman Marion Tasco has been a champion for her constituents in the 9th District, in our entire city for 27 years, the great chair of the Finance Committee in more recent years. She made the decision that she will leave this body. I certainly know what that feels like. But we will feel her impact for many, many years to come. On a very, very personal level, 2 other people so closely associated with Councilwoman Tasco, Marilyn Clyburn and Flo Burnley, both of whom also had a tremendous impact on my life as I was just getting started in politics. They paid attention to wards and divisions. They directly helped in the takeovers of the 52nd and the 38th, which subsequently led to my becoming a member of Philadelphia City Council. Please recognize Councilwoman Marion Tasco for her great service to this city. With the support of Councilman Mark Squilla, we're seeing dynamic changes to our waterfronts and Market East, and we'll see even more development and planning as we complete the South District Plan, which will be adopted in June. Councilman Kenyatta Johnson has been a vocal supporter of expansion and diversification of jobs and companies located at the Philadelphia Navy Yard. I want to recognize Councilwoman Janie Blackwell for her long commitment to moving our police headquarters to our new public safety campus at 4601 Market Street. It's the right move for the Philadelphia Police Department, and it is great for West Philadelphia and our city. Councilman Curtis Jones, thank you for spearheading the Special Investigative Committee on the Department of Licenses and Inspections, which has led to significant changes in the department. Councilman Bobby Heenan has been a vital partner with us in our efforts to revitalize the manufacturing industry in Philadelphia, including helping to secure the Dietz & Watson $50 million facility expansion, which broke ground late last year. I want to thank Councilwoman Maria Quinones-Sanchez for leading the city's efforts to create the Philadelphia Land Bank. Thanks to her dedication, her work with Council President Clark, and all of you, Philadelphia is the largest city in the nation with a land bank. I want to thank and recognize Councilwoman Cindy Bass's continued dedication and service and her enthusiasm for parks and recreation all across our city. And in his role as the chair of the Committee on Technology and Information Services, Councilman Brian O'Neill has been a staunch supporter of our Office of Innovation and Technology and Philly 311. Councilwoman Blondell Reynolds Brown has shared our goal of making Philadelphia a greener city for years to come and pushed forward making permanent the Office of Sustainability. I want to thank Council members W. Wilson Good Jr. and Councilman William Greenlee for their commitment to protecting Philadelphia's workforce through their work on living wage and paid sick leave legislation. That legislation will help address a growing issue of income inequality in Philadelphia and helps to support Councilman Ed Nielsen's proposed new special committee on income inequality in our city. And for his advocacy work on behalf of individuals with disabilities, we should all recognize Councilman Dennis O'Brien. And lastly, let us recognize Councilman David O., who's been a voice for veterans on City Council and also introducing legislation that expands the BERT tax credit for businesses that hire our veterans. Let us recognize the great work and efforts of Philadelphia City Council members one more time. Today, my proposed FY16 budget recommends key investments that will strengthen our communities with a particular focus on public safety and workforce development. It takes on directly an issue that we've been working on for a long time, public education. And this budget continues to invest in our priorities from the last 7 years, priorities that I believe have helped and will continue to help Philadelphia grow as a place to live, work, and raise our families. The proposed $3.95 billion FY16 General Fund budget has nearly $90 million in added expenditures, which represents a modest increase in spending over FY15. The majority of our new spending, $78 million of the $90 million, will go toward rising employee costs, including pension, health care, and the new police arbitration award. And this budget, like each proposed budget since FY11, proposes no tax increases for the city's general fund. We have managed our city funds well over the last few years. Right now, I'd also like to mention a new budget tool that we're rolling out this year. In an effort to increase transparency and understanding of the city's budget, we're launching today an interactive website, www.phila.gov/openbudget, which details the current fiscal year and my proposed budget for FY16. It allows users to break down the budget by funding source, department, and expense type, It also offers a downloadable spreadsheet of this open data. Over the last year, utilizing the recommendations put forward by the Special Independent Advisory Commission in its report, A Plan for a Safer City, we have expanded our definition of what a public safety agency is and placed the Department of Licenses and Inspections under the direction of the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety. After carefully reviewing the report's recommendations, and due to the highly technical nature of this work, we have mapped out a 3-year implementation strategy running from FY16 through FY18 for enacting the agreed-upon recommendations. This approach will fund initiatives that can be implemented immediately in FY16 so that our city can be safer right now. Overall, this is an aggressive plan that adds staff to target vacant properties and creates new positions for trained professionals to oversee electrical, plumbing, and crane safety, while allowing more time for the initiatives that will require staff recruitment and training. In total, L&I and the departments that support its work, like the Philadelphia Fire Department, will receive $5.5 million in new funding in FY16, and that new funding level will rise to $10.8 million by FY18. We will hire 43 new employees in this budget that's proposed, and an additional 58 employees by FY18. Over the next 3 years, this complement of 101 new employees represents a 20% increase in staffing for L&I. Specifically, we will add 8 new inspectors to both L&I and the fire departments this year to expand fire prevention efforts through a dedicated fire prevention unit. But it's not just through L&I and the fire department that we're making key investments in public safety. We will provide $3.6 million for the police department to expand the use of body cameras worn by police officers and support mandatory training and equipment, including 1,300 new bulletproof vests for our police officers and $900,000 to the fire department for equipment upgrades like self-contained breathing apparatus. We're also allocating funding over the 5-year plan to maintain a sworn strength of 6,525 police officers. Additionally, since our brave service men and women cannot perform their sworn duties without safe, professional work environments, we're also allocating $6 million in funding for improvements to police and fire stations and other facilities. While these investments will make our city safer and protect the well-being of our residents, we must also work to support our citizens by creating opportunities for Philadelphians through educational programs, workforce training, and jobs. For FY16, we'll provide funding for initiatives that engage learners of all ages, especially our students, but I will come back to that in a moment. We will spend more than $3 million to increase support for the Community College of Philadelphia to help students get a college diploma. It is my expectation that this new additional funding for Community College of Philadelphia will result in no tuition increase for community college students in the next year. To continue our support of college attainment programs, we're reinforcing the Philadelphia Talent Collaborative, an umbrella organization that will house the Graduation Coach Campaign, Philly Goes to College, Campus Philly, and Graduate Philadelphia. We are allocating an additional $1.1 million for those efforts. We'll increase spending in our neighborhood libraries for the 3rd consecutive year, including $1 million to the Free Library for the Read by 4th campaign, a citywide coordinated effort to ensure that every student is reading at grade level by 4th grade. Philadelphia Parks and Recreation will receive nearly $4 million to launch a new office dedicated to youth workforce learning and development through the expansion of its existing summer jobs program, the establishment of a year-round career development program, and the creation of a transitional jobs program patterned after similar models of our successful Philly Future Track in the Streets Department and PowerCore PHL initiatives in the Water Department and Philadelphia Parks and Recreation. We'll continue to make improvements to neighborhood commercial corridors like sidewalks and lighting, landscaping, and parking to complement private investment, and $20 million to pave neighborhood streets throughout our city, which is an increase of $4 million over FY15. And we'll continue to invest resources to make our city government more efficient and effective. This investment will include the creation of a new data warehouse for the Department of Revenue, which will help us to capture even more delinquent tax revenue, $5.7 million in added collections in FY16, and a total of $20 million over the 5-year plan. Our budget also proposes a $15 million investment to replace vehicles citywide, including fire trucks, trash compactors, and other large vehicles and equipment. And so now let me return to education. From my first day in office, I've said continually that we must provide high-quality education for young Philadelphians if we want to build a better educated, higher skilled, more capable workforce and grow our local economy and population and make Philadelphia a safer and more prosperous city. But year after year, instead of talking about the progress that is happening in schools across our city, we've had no choice but to discuss the systemic fiscal challenges that weaken school safety, the learning community, and our students' success. You know what the Great Recession and the brutal state education funding cuts did. And in response, our superintendent, Dr. Haidt, was forced to fill deficits rather than invest in achievement, to cut critical services like nurses and guidance counselors, rather than add college prep courses. Right now, the fact is, our children go to schools where a substandard level of educational supports and services, unfortunately, are the status quo. Dr. Haidt, Philadelphia's education advocates, parents, including me as a proud parent of a recent public school graduate, have decried this kind of education as unacceptable and that these stopgap solutions are completely insufficient. Now, we in this building have never dodged our responsibility when Dr. Haidt called on the city to support Philadelphia's children. We have tried to do the right thing time after time after time. Over the last 5 years, this City Council has responded to the proposals, and our citizens have invested more than $360 million in annual recurring funding to educate our young people, the largest 5-year increase in local contribution in terms of total dollars over the last 30 years. I want to note, though, that we aren't alone in having to generate new revenues. Across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, 91% of school districts, whether controlled by Republicans or Democrats, had to raise property taxes to increase funding to educate their children, too. Not only have our taxpayers contributed their hard-earned dollars, but they also became personally engaged and involved. Across our city, there is an unprecedented level of community involvement in our public schools. And whether it's through a friends group, a charter board membership, or school advisory councils, Philadelphians are investing their time, their energy, and their talent in our schools on behalf of our children. We've gone to Harrisburg and led an education coalition with the loudest and clearest voice, calling for full and fair funding for public education in Pennsylvania, and certainly for Philadelphia. For our city, full and fair funding means an increase in the state appropriations for education and the creation and implementation of a student-weighted funding formula, a system that will provide fair funding based on the number of students in a district and the specific needs of those students, just like 47 other states in the United States of America. Let me be clear. It's my view, at least, that this is the only path to long-term financial stability for public education in our city and our Commonwealth. And whether they're district-managed schools or charter schools, for Philadelphia and Pennsylvania, it is clear that more funding is needed. Unfortunately, in the last few years, our reasoned calls for more funding were sometimes overwhelmed by political maneuvering in Harrisburg. But finally, we are at the dawn of seeing a fundamental change in the Commonwealth's commitment to to public education under Governor Tom Wolf. I applaud Governor Wolf for the innovation and boldness of his budget address given on Tuesday, for his call to rebuild Pennsylvania's middle class, and for his focus on job creation and public education, specifically a full and fair funding formula. Governor Wolf has set out a new approach to governing in Pennsylvania, one that can jumpstart the economy here and across the state. His budget calls for $452 million per year in new tax relief for Philadelphians beginning in 2017, raising total tax relief for city residents to more than $538 million per year. That translates into a wage tax rate well below 3.5% for residents and at 3% for non-residents by FY20, and an almost doubling of the homestead exemption from $30,000 to $56,650, which will lower property taxes in 2017 and put millions of dollars into consumer pockets. In the next 4 years, Governor Wolf's plan will also funnel almost $400 million in new tax revenue into the city's inadequately funded pension system, strengthening the retirement futures of thousands of city employees and reducing the risk for our city taxpayers and setting our pension fund on a path to fiscal stability. On public education, Governor Wolf is committing our entire Commonwealth to a brighter future through strategic investments. He understands that weak schools make for a weak state. He proposes to pump billions of dollars into our schools, including $160 million more for the Philadelphia School District and $2 billion statewide in education funding over the next 4 years. His plan to raise the state sales tax and expand its scope while holding steady the current tax rate in Philadelphia will actually close the tax gap a little bit between the city and our surrounding neighbors, improving Philadelphia's competitive position. And at the same time, it will maintain a stable source of funding for our school district and provide more dollars for the city pension fund. And his proposal for a statewide cigarette tax increase would actually accomplish 2 things here in Philadelphia. One, it would abolish the city's recently enacted $2 per pack cigarette tax, which is now a temporary 5-year tax, and replace it with permanent state payment of $60 million per year, all dedicated to education funding. Last month, in a letter to Council President Clark and to me, Dr. Hite requested $103 million in new funding from the city and $206 million in new funding from the Commonwealth to close an $80 million budget gap and implement Action Plan 3.0, a bold new model for public education in Philadelphia. Yesterday, Dr. Hite outlined his innovative redesign for our public schools. His plan is a shift away from our current one-size-fits-all educational model and toward a more individualized system that will give our young people in this city the chance they deserve to be successful in the world. This new model also moves decision-making closer to the classroom. And while the cuts to our schools were relatively uniform and often determined by the central office, adding back, and unfortunately they were not in the position to add back services. Under Action Plan 3.0, schools and the leaders in those schools will have the authority and the autonomy to decide what their students need most and spend those new resources accordingly. For a large comprehensive high school like Bartram, it could mean hiring back guidance counselors and nurses, reading specialists, or assistant principals. Perhaps the funding will reestablish sports teams or art programs that help students stay engaged and involved with their school community and encourage good attendance and grades. Or there is a potential to add AP classes to schools that had to end them, not because our students lacked the potential, but because the schools didn't have enough teachers to teach the courses. The choice belongs to the principal, the teachers, and engaged parents. This is a model of education to support. It is unquestionably a departure from the old industrial education model, and it will, in fact, better position Philadelphia students for success in and out of the classroom. In response to Dr. Height's letter, here's my response. I'm proposing an additional $105 million investment in public education in FY16. To get there, this budget proposes a 9.3% property tax increase, bringing our property tax rate to 1.465%. Combined, the Commonwealth's proposed contribution, the School District of Philadelphia will receive about $265 million in additional revenue to launch Dr. Height's new era of public education in Philadelphia. We need to support this bold and ambitious plan to better educate Philadelphia's children. Our proposal, together with Governor Wolf's new measures announced on Tuesday, will eliminate the district's deficit and provide for investment in this new model to improve educational outcomes for every Philadelphia student. Let me say very clearly, I don't want to raise your taxes, but I do want to educate our children. I don't want the next generation of Philadelphians living under the burdens of poverty and violence without the opportunity to succeed. And that's why now, more than ever, investing in education in our city's future is the right thing to do. And if I have to make a choice between raising revenue or educating our children, I'm going to choose our kids every time. And yes, about 30% of our property owners saw some increase in their property taxes from the implementation of ABI. But 100% of our school children suffered from the education cuts and the lack of funding. The time has come for us as adults to do right by our children. Let's properly fund their education in partnership with Governor Wolf. Let me point out one very important relationship between Governor Wolf's tax relief proposals and the property tax increase for schools that I've proposed. The governor's plan, if enacted, would dramatically increase the city's homestead exemption, as I mentioned earlier, raising it from $30,000 to $56,650, which is the state maximum for Philadelphia. And that would significantly reduce residential property taxes for Philadelphians with the homestead exemption. In fact, the 2017 tax bills would be on average $287 less than the current 2015 residential property tax bills. So what's going to happen with all of this? Your property tax bill would go up in FY16, and then it would significantly go down in FY17 and would actually be lower than it is today in FY15. Investing in education must be our priority today and in the future. It's a mantra that I hope to hear repeatedly this year in particular. And I hope that education debates during this election season are filled with real ideas and solutions to this long-standing challenge, which impacts both our budget, but more importantly, our children's future. During my time as mayor, I've been laser-focused on fiscal stability, and no less so in this budget. But I've also made it a point to attack our challenges head-on. It's my hope that the next mayor will do the same thing, focus on the right direction for Philadelphia, even if the decisions aren't always popular. And it's becoming increasingly clear that more and more Philadelphians do think that we're on the right track, and they're feeling more positive about the future of Philadelphia. And that's why I want to take a few moments to discuss the challenges that the next mayor faces and the decisions required to ensure Philadelphia is that city that we all know it can be, and in many ways already is. The greatest challenges facing our city are intractable, interconnected, and intergenerational. Inadequate education funding for an outdated school model, which I've already discussed, poverty, and the epidemic of violence among young men and boys of color. Our poverty rate is the highest of the top 10 largest cities in America, at 26.3%, down from 28.6% recently. Nearly 397,000 of our residents, including 123,000 of our children, live in poverty, scraping by with the barest of necessities. It's a cyclical problem that traps generation after generation after generation of families. Our administration has laid down the important groundwork to break that cycle. We created the Office of Community Empowerment and Opportunity, CEO, led by Eva Gladstein, launched our anti-poverty plan, Shared Prosperity Philadelphia, focused on increasing the number of family-sustaining jobs and affordable housing available in Philadelphia, secured federal support through our Promise Zone designation by President Obama, and receiving a Choice Neighborhood Grant in North Central Philadelphia, and more. One thing is crystal clear. The next mayor must continue to chip away at the pervasive problem of poverty that holds back hundreds of thousands of Philadelphians from reaching their potential and fully contributing to our communities and our economy. And then there is the unfathomable issue of violence among our young men and boys of color. On average in Philadelphia, 80% of the people that we arrest for homicide, 75% of homicide victims are young black men. These are tragic, senseless acts that tear apart our communities, shatter the hopes of individuals, and leave families and friends traumatized. This is a conversation that demands more people at the table. Our administration started a conversation and then took action. We created the Youth Violence Prevention Collaborative, and with the work of many, many, many partners, we brought in considerable funding for programming. We partnered with New Orleans Mayor Mitch Landrieu to create Cities United, a national response to the epidemic of violence. And we've gotten involved, of course, with President Obama's My Brother's Keeper initiative. But in my view, we've only scratched the surface on a plague of violence that leaves hundreds of our young men damaged, dead, or in prison. The next mayor must do even more, expand the reach of the Youth Violence Prevention Collaborative, and institutionalize these efforts to create change for young men and boys of color all across this city. We've created the framework to move the ball forward on these issues. The next mayor needs to take it up and make it his or her own. Our administration set out to rebuild the infrastructure of city government, to institutionalize programs that make our great city even better. With Shared Prosperity Philadelphia and the Youth Violence Prevention Collaborative, we have reshaped the fundamentals and infused them into the lifeblood of Philadelphia and our government. I've spent many years of my life committed to helping Philadelphia be the city I know that it can be. A dynamic city with a highly educated citizenry, safe communities, an ethical government committed to integrity, a place that values sustainability and supports every resident. At my first inauguration, I outlined goals for our administration that aligned with my ideas of a better Philadelphia, a bright and shining city of hope with opportunity for all. And I'm proud of our city, and I'm proud to be able, later, to pass on to my successor the work our team has done to shape Philadelphia's future. Back then, I said that our city could cut our homicide rate by 30 to 50% in 3 to 5 years, and we did. The next mayor's goal should be less than 200 murders in 2016. The next mayor must continue to push for gains in our high school graduation and college degree attainment rates. With our new investment in education and Dr. Haidt's bold, innovative strategy, there is no reason that Philadelphia can't have an 80% high school graduation rate in the next 2 years. And with our incredible higher education institutions, their commitment to Philadelphia and our support for higher education, there is no reason that we can't see another 50,000 residents with college degrees over the next 4 years. The next mayor must institutionalize integrity and an ethical culture that we work so hard to build into our government. The people of this city deserve that. And so the next mayor must take on the challenge of making permanent positions for the Inspector General and the Chief Integrity Officer. The next mayor must also be a careful steward, of course, of our city's finances. We must face up to our short-term challenges and long-term structural issues, like funding our pension and maintaining and improving our credit rating. The next mayor must actively recruit businesses, development, and investment to our city. The next mayor must commit to further improving the business environment in Philadelphia and encourage responsible corporate citizenship, whether that means supporting summer jobs, mentorship programs, or other activities in our communities. This is my challenge for the next mayor of Philadelphia. Do more than we could. Take the work that we've done and make it your own. Make Philadelphia even greater and more beautiful than what we've already been able to do. The citizens of this great cradle of freedom, liberty, and democracy wish to continue what our forefathers promised: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. The future is in your hands. God bless you all. God bless Philadelphia. And God bless the United States of America. President, can I have 15 seconds? Absolutely. The President gave me another 15 seconds. I'll yield back the balance of my time. I just wanted to say to the council members, thank you for everything. This has just been an incredible personal experience. And having the opportunity to serve this city for so long and in at least two branches of government is not something that many people get to experience. I do want to ask, and they're already standing, you know I have not done any of these things by myself. I have a family, Lisa, Olivia, and Christian. Have pretty much spent all of their lives involved in politics and public service. And as some of you have heard me say from time to time, public service takes its toll. It's not only the public servant, the family serves as well. And to all of you, the sacrifices that you make, and to our families and the sacrifices that they make, just need to acknowledge that. And certainly, on the job side, I have an incredible family here. I'm presently the top 10 cities in the country. I am currently the longest-serving mayor in the country. Philadelphia is the largest city in America with an African-American mayor. Our team, almost all of our team, has been together since January 7th, 2008, which is also one of the longest-serving teams in the country. And it would be impossible to do virtually any of the things that I've talked about here today and things that we'll do in the future without this great team right here. Go Tomorrow. Please recognize the great leaders of the city government. So, I know today wasn't the easiest day to get here, and you know, our snow fighters will be out there doing their jobs as always. But thank you for the opportunity to serve. Thank you.
Folks, if you have your attention, we have one last piece of business to conduct. We have to close it out. It has to be official. Thank you. Thank you. Before we call for an adjournment, I'd like to ask, are there any speeches on the part of the minority? And any speeches on the part of the majority? Chair recognizes Councilman Nielsen.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, I'd like to thank the mayor for addressing us today and his commitment to the children of Philadelphia. Although we have different ideas on how to do that, I'm sure we'll work through that process. But with his commitment, I wanted to let everybody know that last night at 6:28, my son delivered our first granddaughter, Jordan Ray Nielsen. She was born at 6:28, 6 pounds, 11 ounces, 19 inches long, and her and Ashley are doing well, and I just wanted to give them a shout out today, as I'd much rather be stuck in a snowstorm up at the hospital with them, but we're good today. But thank you, Mr. President.
Congratulations, sir. Thank you, Councilman. And with that, Chair recognizes Councilwoman Reynolds Brown for a motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that City Council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 12, 2015 at 10 a.m.
Thank you. It has been moved and properly second. The council stand adjourned until Thursday, March 12, 2015 at 10 a.m. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed, aye. Thank you all very much.